Hello, good evening po dyan sa Pilipinas at saka dito po sa Saudi Arabia. Good afternoon. So our discussion for today with regards to the methodology of appraisal approaches and the valuation procedures in research. So the methodology of appraisal and valuation is the backbone of professional real estate appraisal. It is not merely about memorizing the sales comparison, the cost, and the income approaches, but it's all about understanding the systematic reasoning process behind how value is developed and analyzed, reconciled, and concluded in accordance with the reasoning process. Now, behind how value Okay, so our discussion for today is regarding the methodology of appraisal and valuation, and of course, the valuation procedures and research. So magandang hapon po dyan sa Pilipinas, magandang gabi. Dito naman po sa Saudi Arabia is magandang hapon na. So the introduction about the methodology of appraisal and valuation. The methodology of appraisal and valuation, it is a backbone of a professional real estate appraisal. It is not merely about memorizing the sales comparison, the cost approach, and the income approaches, but it is about understanding the systematic reasoning behind how value is developed. Now, it is not only to develop, but of course, to analyze, to reconcile, and concluded in accordance with the valuation standards. As emphasized in the formal appraisal procedures, valuation is a process and is not a single computation or formula. And the examiner, mostly the PRBRS, they test how the examinee will understand the process as a whole. So understanding the methodology, it is a critical because most examination questions are process-driven and judgment-based. So the PRBRES does not ask what formula to use only, but when, why, and why not to apply a particular approach. So many examinees fail not due to lack of formulas, but due to weak grasp of defining the appraisal problem and identifying the appropriate approaches and properly reconciling the value indications. Like here in our slide, as you can see. So, but before that, we would like to congratulate our future top-notchers who got the high score in the recent mock exam challenge. And we have our Malvin Malquisto and the top two, Michelle Nunez, Jesse Abendan Ilo, Marlon Hernandez, and Albert Amesola Laniva. So congratulations and we're rooting for you na isa kayo sa mga magtatap ngayong real estate appraiser ngayong July dyan sa Pilipinas. So go back to our discussion which is the methodology appraisal and the evaluation procedures and research. And taking the board exam, dealing with a challenges before and during the exams. So before the examination, the challenge lies in organizing the concepts into a logical appraisal flow. So from definition of the assignment, highest and best use, the proper application of approaches to reconciliation and reporting. So during the exam, the challenges appear into a form. So what kind of that form na sinasabi? Diba? As you can see from definition of the assignment, highest and best use, but there is a form. And that what we called is to trap, no? Trap the questions. Most of the examiners kasi ganyan yung ginagawa, diba? Parang you need to think, you need to analyze every single case scenario na ibibigay ng mga examiner. And especially those testing whether you understand that reconciliation is not averaging or not that all approaches are always applicable to every property type. And for you to be able to surpass the examine, so the examinees must shift from rote learning to examiner thinker. Hindi lang kayo like examining, hindi lang kayo nag-review, but of course, you have to deal with the facts. So you read the facts carefully, identify the valuation of problem first, eliminate technically incorrect options, and always align answers with the standard appraisals methodology. So that is the key para during the exam, hindi na kayo masyado nag-rattle, medyo relax na kayo. You need to establish yourself during the examination day. Kasi um, kailangan well-prepared na kayo, hindi na kayo nag-iisip ng kung ano-ano. Kaya nga 'di ba, I always advise sa mga magte-take ng board exam, 2 days before the board exam, kung kailangan mag-relax ka na lang, kumain, lumabas, manood, and then ayun, ready ka na to go for another challenge. And most of the, examination, the examiner is style reminders for the appraisal and the evaluation exam. So this time, you need to master the logic of valuation and not just the math. Kasi ang appraisal exam naman is not always math, di ba? Babawi talaga kayo sa mga hindi magaling sa math, doon sa mga analytical, sa critical thinking. So, yung mga case scenario, kapag nalaman mo na kung ano yung pinakang core ng the context ng mga principles, so madaling-madali mo na lang siyang masasagutan yung exam. So, and because of that, you gain the confidence, the accuracy, and consistency, which are exactly what the licensure examination is designed to measure. So, lagi niyo pong tatandaan yan. And then we have a point that you have to remember during the board exam and then during our review. So, number one, how the examiner traps the question. So, ganyan lagi ang ginagawa ng mga taga-PRBRS kasi ang board exam naman is hindi siya yung parang gift or parang pamigay lang. Di ba? Pinaghihirapan natin ang ating mga lisensya. So for you to be able and to cope of that, of course, number one, meron tayong tinatawag na always identify the appraisal problem first. So, if you don't know what is being valued or what is the purpose and as of what date, any computation that follows is meaningless. So kailangan you need to identify the appraisal problem first. Okay? And the PRBLS or the examiner expects you to think like an appraiser. It's not like a calculator. So many wrong answers come from a jumping straight to a formulas without first defining the assignment, the value definition, and its purpose. Okay, like for example here, an appraiser is asked to estimate the value of a commercial lot with an existing warehouse. So take note, commercial lot with an existing warehouse. So the client intends to sell the property within the next 6 months. So without the clarifying the intended use of the valuation or the type of the value required, the appraiser immediately applies the income capitalization approach using a projected rental income. Now the question is, which of the following best explains why this approach is premature? So like number one, the cost approach should always be applied first in all appraisals. Or yung number two, the appraiser failed to establish the appraisal problem. Or all, we have also the income capitalization is not applicable to warehouse properties. And letter D, all valuation approaches must be applied average. So what is your answer for this question? So usually, nakakatrap yung question, di ba? But the correct answer for this is letter B. So without clarifying the intended use of the valuation or the type of a value required, the appraiser immediately applies the income capitalization approach using the projected rental income. Kasi nakita niyo commercial lot, di ba? So parang nag-isip agad siya na income capitalization. And um yung sagot natin dito na letter B kasi before selecting the approach, an approach, the appraiser must clearly determine. So what are those, di ba? Number one, siyempre yung the purpose of the valuation, type of the value required, like yung property rights involved, and then the effective date of the value. So without this clarification, the selection of the income capitalization is unsupported. Diba? Valuation methodology require logical sequencing and not automatic use of formula. So So the fundamental error is the failure to define the appraisal problem before applying any valuation method. Okay? So why not the others? Bakit hindi tama yung letter A? Bakit hindi siya cost approach? 'Di ba? In every appraisal process, there is no hierarchy that requires one approach to be applied first. Hindi naman pa pwedeng kung sino lang yung mauna. Halimbawa, sales, cost, or income. Walang hierarchy, walang pagkakasunod-sunod. Diba? It depends on the given case scenario yan. So, approach selection depends on the appraisal problem. So, bakit naman sinasabi niya hindi yung letter C, income capitalization? Because it is not applicable to warehouses. This is not correct. Warehouses may generate incomes. So the issue is not applicability, but the premature application, do not confuse, because the warehouses is kakaroon lang siya income generating when it comes kapag pinaparentahan lang siya, or kapag talaga may mga third parties na talagang umuupa. So that is income generating dun sa warehouses. So ang sabi naman kasi, yung commercial lot, meron siyang existing warehouses, but we really don't know it is a ginagamit ba siya owner occupied. So kapag owner occupied siya and support business operations, so income generating when it leases to a third party. So since na existing lang naman yung kanyang warehouses doon sa commercial lot, so hindi siya income generating kasi nga hindi naman siya pinaparenta. The question is very clear, may existing. And then all approaches, bakit daw hindi letter D? Kasi all approaches must be applied and an average na a classic board trap examination like this, averaging is not a reconciliation. And not all approaches are required in every appraisal. So put in your mind that the examiner or the mindset of the PRBRS that if the problem is unclear, the value opinion has no foundation. So take note of that. If the problem is not clear, the value opinion has no foundation. So all you have to do is define first, decide next, and then compute later or compute last. So that is the last part na gagawin ninyo. So here in another one is that not all approaches are always applicable. So what is your take about this? The not all approaches are always not always applicable, diba? The correct answer is often to the most appropriate approach, not all the three. So examiners deliberately test whether you know when an approach should not be applied. Like for example, yung income approach for owner-occupied residential property with no income data. So that's one of the example. And here, the appraiser says that is commissioned to estimate the value of a single detached owner-occupied residential house located in a purely residential subdivision. The property has no rental history. And similar properties in the area are typically not leased. Hindi naman siya pinapaupahan or hindi pinaupahan. And then the question here is, which valuation approach is the most appropriate to give primary weight to in this assignment? So what is your answer for this? Okay, so probably you will answer this. The correct answer here is letter C. Okay? So why it is letter C? Ano ba ang ipinapahiwatig? Bakit daw sales comparison approach considering market behavior of a similar properties? So in the examiner perspective, the correct approach is the sales comparison because the subject property is the owner occupied. And the buyers in the market base their decision on a recent sales of comparable residential properties and not on income generation. So the income capitalization approach is not appropriate in this case because there is no reliable income data and the typical purchaser is not an investor. So maybe the examiner deliberately, they are going to, give you the test whether examinees can recognize the situations where an approach should not be applied, even if it is theoretically possible. Okay? And the correct approach nga, yung sinabi ko, not in income generation. So bakit daw yung letter A hindi ang tamang sagot? Why income capitalization approach? Because all properties have potential income. So, di ba, this is a very classic, I mean, a very board exam trap. Kasi, while any property can theoretically earn income, appraisal methodology focuses on the actual market behavior and not the hypothetical use. And for letter B naman, cost approach only, that is not applicable because the cost approach may support the value, but it does not reflect market actions where the comparable sales data is available and reliable. And even yung letter D, all the approaches with equal weight, no, examiners, maybe they will frequently use this option just because to detect the mechanical thinking, di ba? Yung appraisal practice requires selective application and not automatic use of all approaches. So maybe ang pinaparating lang sa atin dito is the best answer is the appropriate approach and not the complete list. So did you get that? If the market does not rely on income, neither should the appraiser. So hindi ba pwede? Kung yung ng market hindi siya nag-rely sa income, paano pa kaya yung appraiser? So ganun yun. So there is always a professional judgment with regards on this. For this slide, reconciliation is a professional judgment and not averaging. It is a very important to know and to master for all of you na ano siya, hindi siya averaging like yung mechanical averaging. So meron tayong basis kung saan nakuha yung reconciliation is a professional judgment. If option says that average the three approaches, so eliminate it immediately. So parang hindi siya talaga applicable. Like, di ba yung reconciliation requires weighing the reliability and relevance of its approach based on the property data and purposes. So never a mechanical averaging. Yung parang pag nakita mo lang yung tatlong figure na yan, tapos i-divide mo na siya into 3, then that's the correct answer. No. Because look at the example. The appraiser noted that the following valuation approaches to a mixed-use building. So, yan nga yun, yung sales niya, may sales comparison niya is 48 million, income is 52 million, then the cost approach is 60 million. Now, the appraiser noted that the market rental data were reliable while cost data were limited due to outdated construction benchmark. So, yun ang ating tatandaan doon. Now, which of the following is the most defensible reconciliation method? Defensible. Diba? Parang, ano lang, you have to give more justification in this. Okay, so, so the correct answer for this is letter C. How this letter C come with the correct answer? Because reconciliation is the stage where the appraiser evaluates the credibility and relevance of each value indication. Okay, so it is not a mathematical exercise, but it is a reasoned judgment based on what? Based on the quality and reliability of data, the consistency with market behavior, and relevance to the appraisal purpose. So actually, in this case, the income capitalization approach deserve a greater consideration because the income data are reliable and directly reflect how the market values the property. Therefore, weighing supported approaches and not averaging. It is the correct reconciliation practice. Okay? Sabi, bakit hindi yung letter A, add daw yung 3 value indication and divide by 3. Kasi nga, hindi siya averaging. This is the most common board trap na ginagawa ng iba examinee. Diba? Averaging ignores differences in data quality. Kasi given na nga, diba, Kailangan may quality and reliability of data consistently with the market behavior. So that's the most important. And averaging ignores differences in data quality and remove professional judgment from the valuation process. So nawawala siya. Sa letter B naman, kung yan ang pipiliin nyo, hindi rin pwede kasi reconciliation is not about choosing the most favorable or optimistic result, but the most credible one. Okay, so in letter D, automatically choosing the sales comparison approach, which is wrong. No approach is automatically superior. Walang ganon. Okay, siguro yung mga comparables lang na from the subject property, merong may superior by inferior. So we will discuss that later. And the applicability depends on the property type, data availability, and the valuation purpose. So mostly the examiner, they intend to us na reconciliation weigh evidence, it does not compute an average. So if judgment is missing, then the reconciliation has failed. So that's the kailangan nyo matandaan. Okay, so we have here so we are now going to pursue the principal drive approaches. So if you don't see the underlying principle, you are likely missing the best answer. So the sales comparison and then the cost approach are anchored into a substitution, while the income approach is anchored on the anticipation. So the board often hides principle-based question inside a methods question. So in this juncture, let us now see the example of principal drive approaches. So an appraiser is tasked to value an income-producing apartment building that is fully rented and purchased primarily by the investors. So the appraiser focuses on estimating future net income and converts this income into a present value estimate. Oh, so the question here is, which valuation principle most directly supports the approach applied by the appraiser? So substitution, contribution, anticipation, or conformity. So for this question, the correct answer here is letter C. Because the income approach is anchored on the principle of anticipation, which holds the value is created by the expectation of a future benefits. Not only the future benefits, even the income or the return on investment. In income producing properties, buyers are motivated by what the property is expected to earn in the future, 'di ba? Kapag ano ba yung na-expect ng mga buyers, kailangan nilang kumita or pagkakitaan yung kanilang pina-purchase na property, and not merely by replacement cost or comparable sales. Mostly the examiners test whether the examinees can correctly link the valuation methods to their governing principles, or even when the question appears to be about approaches only. So, bakit daw hindi tama yung substitution? Substitution supports the sales comparison and then the cost approaches and not the valuation. It is not centered with the valuation on a future income streams. Hindi lang pwedeng contribution kasi contribution based, it relates to how a component affects overall value and not the selection of an income-based method. Even the conformity influences the highest value within the neighborhood but does not explain the income capitalization. Conformity, yun lang yung parang you have to make a tawag dito comparison or comparison with the neighborhood. So kailangan pare-parehas, 'di ba? They need to harmonize yung mga nasa paligid niya. So here, as you can see, income approach is anchored on the principle of anticipation. 'Di ba? Kasi nga it create by expectation of a future benefits. Okay, let's now proceed to our next topic. Why not use is as important as use? So bakit nga ba bakit daw may mga kailangang ilagay tapos may mga kailangang ilagay na hindi naman siya puwedeng ilagay. So, do you know what I mean? Halimbawa, nakita mo sa isang property na inyong ina-appraise is, like for example, kailangan mo ilagay, income generating 'to, ganito, ganyan. So ngayon, hindi mo naman siya nakikitaan ng parang mas matimbang doon sa nakita mong ina-appraise mong property. So, ang ginawa mo yung isa na lang. So ngayon, bilang isang appraiser, an appraiser compliant, explain both the inclusion and then the exclusion. So kailangan mong sabihin yan kung ano yung mga um, pwedeng ilagay at saka yung mga pwedeng hindi ilagay. Pero dito yung tinatawag natin na the honest to goodness, 'di ba? Kaya 'pag nakita mo naman na hindi siya applicable pero kailangan mo pa rin siyang sabihin. So ito yung mga inclusion, ito yung exclusion kasi yun yung nakita mo sa site and then dineclare mo and then you have your professional judgment. So kailangan mong gawin. Kasi mostly sa examination, ang examiners natin, the examiner test is pertain this to the reporting concept. So the reporting concept, especially the requirement to explain why certain generally recognized approaches were not applied and consistent with valuation reporting standards. So it emphasizes the intentional exclusion matters and not using something an option. So the option is a method, a word, a resource, a strategy is often a deliberate, thoughtful choice and not an oversight. So kailangan ilagay mo ko yung dapat ilagay at bakit mo naman hindi siya dapat ilagay. So, yun yung nakita mo eh, 'di ba? So, ibang klase kasi pag appraiser ang isang tao, 'di ba? So, kailangan maging ano ka, kumbaga nagkakaroon ka ng disclosure, yung may mga bagay na hindi mo naman siya disclose pero kailangan mong sabihin. So, may mga ganon. So, like here in the example, an appraiser prepared a valuation report for a vacant residential lot. So, nagpe-prepare na siya ng kanyang valuation report. 'Di ba? Sabi ko nga, this question, I mean, this is the kind of a reporting concept. I, iniisip ng mga examiner kung paano tayo sumagot or i-analyze yung reporting concept. And in the report, the appraiser applied the sales comparison approach and concluded value but made no discussion. So, it has no discussion of the cost approach and income approach. So, anong dapat mong gawin? Which statement best describes the adequacy of the appraiser or the appraisal report? The report, ano ba, yung letter A, report is compliant since one appropriate approach was applied. So the report is incomplete because it failed to explain why other approaches were not applied. And then the report is incorrect because all three approaches must always always be used. So letter D is the report is acceptable as long as the final value was stated. So what is the correct answer for this scenario? Okay, the correct answer for this is letter B, 'di ba? The report is incomplete because it failed to explain why other approaches were not applied. So kaya nga sabi ko kung hindi mo siya i-apply, you need to put, 'di ba? Why not use is as important as use. So, a compliant appraisal report does not only explain what valuation approaches was used, but also why other generally recognized approaches were not applied. So, yan yung pinakang concept niya, di ba? Ulitin ko lang, no? A compliant appraisal tayo, mga dapat maging tayo, honest to goodness, does not only explain what the valuation approach was used, but also why other generally recognized approaches were not applied. Okay? And you need to have a disclosure. Even when the sales comparison approach is clearly the most appropriate, the appraiser must still demonstrate the professional judgment by explaining the exclusion of other approaches. Because failure to do so weakens, so yun nga, if failure to do so, it weakens the transparency, and prevents the reader from fully understanding how the valuation conclusion was reached. So yan yung pinakang explanation niya bakit dapat natin ilagay at hindi ilagay. So kailangan, sabi nga 'di ba, even yung sales comparison approach is clearly the most appropriate, pero the appraiser must still demonstrate professional judgment. So kailangan talaga you need to explain the exclusion. Inclusion, ito ang mga well declared, judgment, and then ilagay mo rin naman yung mga exclusion. Okay? Para at the same time aware din yung client. Sabi, bakit hindi yung letter A? Kasi nga, a compliant, since one approach was applied, using the correct approach is not enough. So the appraisal must always justify the non-use of other applicable approaches. So yung isa naman, letter C, all the approaches must always use, hindi siya pwede nga, di ba? This is a common methodology or parang it's a common myth and the classic board trap during the examination. The appraisal methodology requires consideration, not automatic application of all approaches. Now, yung letter D naman, the report is acceptable, hindi siya tama kasi acceptable as long as the value is stated. Okay, so the board does not assess answers based on the outcome alone, but on a process and reporting quality. Okay, so let's think of it na silence on omitted approaches is not a professional judgment. Tandaan niyo po yan. If an approach is excluded, the report must say why. Bakit mo tinanggal? Bakit mo hindi sinama? Why you didn't use this? Why? Why? So there's so many why na kailangan natin gawin. Okay, now let's proceed to our next slide. Facts control the answer, not habit. So in this kind of scenario, in every board exam, lagi niyong babasahin yung question. Read the facts. Read the facts twice. Di ba? Pag tayo nagkakaroon ng analysis, nag-ano tayo ng ating mga assignment or kapag nag-exam tayo, lagi nating babasahin yung question twice and then wag tayong tumigil sa first line or first sentence and then kasi nabasa mo, okay na tapos sinagutan mo na agad. No, kailangan mong idire-diretso hanggang sa last sentence kasi baka mamaya may twist, di ba? Kasi most of the trap questions are hidden in one line. So kailangan mong tapusin. And then board question often include limiting facts. Hindi niya sinasabi, ano ba yung mga limiting facts? Like the age of building, the purpose of the appraisal, availability of data. These are the missing one-line leads to choosing an otherwise correct-looking answers that technically wrong. Okay? Kasi nga, nilimit yung facts doon. Pero kung in-scrutinize mo talaga yung questions, hindi ka maliligaw. So let's say for the example in this, an appraiser is asked to determine the value of 25-year-old commercial building to be used for bank loan evaluation. Okay, so the facts state that the building is fully owner-occupied, so ginagamit na may-ari, and there is no rental income data available. Comparable sales of similar properties are recent and reliable. So which of the valuation approach should be given primary consideration? Take note, the primary, the greatest least, the greatest option, the weight, kumbaga, the greatest weight na pwede mong i-apply. So what's the primary consideration? Yung A ba, C, letter B, or letter D? Okay, so for this question, we have to consider yung letter C, di ba? Yun yung correct answer for this scenario. The sales comparison approach based on available market evidence. So although the property is commercial, okay, the property is commercial building, the controlling facts show that it is a owner-occupied with no income data available. So nakita mo yung trap question, diba? The property is commercial, napaisip ka na agad na parang, parang income capitalization ito, parang ganon. So, lagi nyo iisipin, yung controlling facts 'Di ba? Para kasi ang nagiging habitual na ng mga nag-e-exam kasi, base sa kanilang nalaman at saka base sa siguro from the other review centers na yun yung pinakang habitual 'pag nakita na agad yung yung tawag nito, yung commercial building, umiisip agad sa kanila is yung income, capitalization approach, parang income approach agad siya. Pero hindi nila nakita yung controlling facts show that it is owner occupied with no income data available. 'Di ba? Very obvious. Kaya nga, minsan tinatago ng mga examiner yung mga hidden facts na yan. So, because of this fact eliminates the income capitalization approach as the primary method despite what the examinees may habitually associated with the commercial property. So the PRBRES, mostly the PRBRES, the examiner, deliberately plants traps like this by relying on one limiting fact. Okay? Yung one limiting fact, yung absence of income data. Walang income data, di ba? Pero look at the question. 'Di ba? Kung alam mo yung concept, 'di ba, ng income approach tsaka yung sales comparison approach, so alam mo na agad, yung magiging sagot mo kasi hindi ka mata-trap. Kasi there are hidden traps, for example, itong, tawag dito, 'di ba, ang correct answer is letter C. So the correct answers comes from a reading every fact carefully and not from relying on the category-based shortcuts. Like for example, yung letter A, bakit hindi siya income? So this option looks correct at first glance. Parang, ay, tama ito. Because the property is commercial, but it is ignores the critical fact that no income data exists. Nothing at all. So parang matatrap ka sa question. And then pagdating naman sa letter B, the cost approach option, age alone does not make the cost approach dominant. With reliable comparable sales available, the market behavior carries more weight. So kaya hindi siya pwede. Yung letter D naman, this is a classic board trap also kasi nga nandun yung lahat ng approaches, then the equal weighing disregards data relevance and then the professional judgment. So most of the examinees natatrap sa ganitong klaseng scenario, they are controlling the correct answers kasi parang nakasanayan na nila yon. And then the the exam does not require habit. It rewards the attention to facts. So tandaan nyo yan na wag tayong parang it's a rewarding experience na natutunan mo sa pag-aaral mo or kung saan man. Pero it is also a rewarding experience kapag doon ka sa attention to facts. Okay? Miss one line and then the correct looking answer becomes wrong. Tandaan po natin yan. So miss one line and the correct looking answer becomes wrong. Okay? Kaya lagi po nating tatandaan yan kasi nga yan yung malimit na ginagawa sa mga exams para maisip na ang nag-e-exam is alam yung mga concepts with regards to the mga approaches na yan. Hindi kasi pamigay ang board exam. And even the examiner, di ba, tinetest niya kayo eh. It is testing skills, thinking, analytical thinking. Kaya siguro ako nakapasa ng board, diyan lang siguro ako bumawi sa mga analytical thinking na yan, 'di ba? So hindi ako na-trap. Siguro kung natalo niyo ako sa computation, so siguro hindi niyo ako mata-trap sa analytical. Okay? Now we have what do you call? We have also, alam niyo naman siguro na yung the highest and best use. 'Di ba? Ano ba yung mga ginagawa diyan sa mga highest and best use? Yung ito katulad dito. During the exam, 'di ba? The exam test logic under pressure. 'Di ba? Parang gulo-gulo na utak ko. Relax, guys. You need to establish yourself. Nandiyan ka na, i-enjoy mo na siya, para kang kumakain ng favorite meal mo, tapos nagbabasa ka lang, then nangunguya ka lang ng mga medyo matunog na para kapag kasi medyo crunchy kinakain, gumagana daw. Hintay mo, 'di ba, pag gumagalaw yan. So, nag-grind siya tapos gumagana yung ating mind. So, here, the board is not asking what do you remember, but how do you think? Ito yung lagi kong sinasabi sa inyo. Saan ba applicable yung what do you remember? 'Di ba? Yung mga definition of terms, kakabisaduhin mo lang yan, alam mo na siya. Pero yung How do you think? It is a very case-to-case basis. So, kailangan mong isipin, na-memorize mo na yan eh. So, during the exam, pag lumabas yung what's the definition of real estate appraiser? O, di ba? So, alam mo na yung sasagot. Pero, but how do you think? Yan yung pinaka-importante during the exam. So, please don't mag-rattle. Huwag kayo mag-iisip ng kung ano-ano kasi nga, the examinees who passed consistently apply the methodology of how they how they apply. Then, for example, yung define, analyze, apply, reconcile, and conclude. Those fail who usually shortcut the process. So kapag yung nag-shortcut ka lang, nako, wala. Unlike kung alam mo yung methodology and how to apply, papasa ka. So there's another one, eliminate wrong answers before choosing the right one. Very, yung ginagawa natin yan. One technically incorrect word can invalidate the entire option. So words like always, only, automatically, or average are classic red flags in appraisal exam. It is a classic red flags. Okay? So, examiners use absolute terms to expose weak conceptual understanding. Kaya dapat labanan ninyo sa examiner. Kaya nga sabi ko, isipin nyo na ikaw sa examiner, bakit niya kailangan niya ipaintindi sa iyo ito? Kasi in the future, you will do that. You will execute those methodology pagdating sa mga pag-appraise or mag-assess ka, di ba? So, always think like a licensed appraiser and not a reviewee or examinee. Kailangan, ay nako, kiniklaim, lisensyado na ako, so kailangan ito na dapat. So, if you were to sign the report, which answer would you defend? So, yun. The safest exam, the choice is the one you can professionally justify using the appraisal methodology, principles, and standards, and not the one that looks like easiest or the shortest. So, yan po lagi ang tatandaan natin. Let's now proceed to methodology of appraisal approaches. Okay? Alam nyo naman yan na coming from the PBS. Di ba? Saan galing ang PBS? From the IBS. So, yon. And then, laging naandyan yan, yung real property valuation is performed using the 3 generally accepted appraisal approaches. Standard talaga siya. Okay? So sometimes yung mga appraiser does not mechanically average the result of the 3 approaches. So instead, the appraiser must reconcile the indication of a value and give greater weight to the approach that most appropriate to the property type, available data, and the purpose of the appraiser. Okay? So, di ba sabi dito, may question nga eh. So bago tayo pumunta sa question na yan, ano ba yung ibig sabihin nung yung mga appraiser na ginagawa lang yung may iba mga mechanical averaging, di ba? What do you call this? In a mechanical average, it means that simply adding the total values from the different appraisal approaches like income, yan, ganyan. Ito nakikita ninyo. 10.5, 11.2, and 10, i-divide sa tatlo, tapos yun yung sagot nila. So yun yung nagiging, yun ang tinatawag na mechanically averaging. And ginagawa nito without thinking or explaining which approach is more reliable or relevant. Diba? Ito yung trap question. Basahin natin. An appraiser value a 10-year-old residential apartment building and obtain the following indication of value: 10.5, 11.2, and then 10 million. So to arrive at the final opinion of value, the appraiser added the 3 values and divided the sum by the 3. So trap question, di ba? So this reconciliation method is called what? Anong tawag po natin dito? A, B, C, or D. So syempre, marami sa inyo matatrap, baka mamaya iba yung sagot. But the correct answer here is letter C. So why this question is trap? Kasi the examinees are tempted to choose letter A or letter B. Kasi they are thinking the average, which is the fair. So they are thinking the average computation ng total na yan, ng figure na nakikita nila. However, under the under the PBS, ayan, meron tayong source. Under the PBS, which is, or the IBS, reconciliation requires professional judgment and not arithmetic, averaging, or not mechanical averaging. Sabi ng Philippine Valuation Standards Part 3, under the reconciliation of value indication, the standards make clear that the reconciliation of value, the reconciliation is not a mechanical or mathematical averaging. The final value conclusion is based on professional judgment, and then the valuer must weigh the relevance and the reliability of its approach. So reconciliation means that weighing the most reliable and relevant approach based on what? Diba? Based saan? Property type, based the quality of data, the purpose of the appraisal. So mechanical averaging is explicitly improper and fails reporting standards as emphasized in mechanically averaging. So yan. Hindi siya papet. It's a big no-no. Okay? And what reconciliation judgment look like in a report? So well, all the three approaches, di ba, nandiyan nga yung sales comparison approach, income approach, and then the cost approach. So this time, in the given scenario, di ba, an appraiser does not mechanically average the result of the three approaches. Instead, the appraiser must reconcile. Yun yung nabanggit ko kanina. So here, the sales comparison approach was given the greatest weight as it most directly reflects the action of a typical buyers for a similar properties. Yung nakita yung ano kanina example. So the income approach was given the secondary, which is the consideration due to the limited rental comparables, and when the cost approach naman was given the last weight because of the depreciation estimation limitation. So here, it is a pure math exercise kapag gagawin mong averaging lang siya, which is not a professional judgment, and that is wrong. Okay? Mali po siya. Excuse me. So, mali po yung gagawin mo lamang. So here, like for example, sales comparison in 10 million, cost is, 11, and then income is 9. So, pina-plus lang ni, ano yan, appraiser, diba niya sa tatlo, so ang sagot 10 million na. So, which is wrong. Because, ini-ignore mo yung property type, data reliability, and then the purpose of appraisal. So, in this scenario, what the standards requires instead? Siyempre, reconciliation requires weighing and analyzing the value indication based on reliability and relevance, not mechanical averaging as clearly stated in the appraisal process. So, nabanggit yan kanina sa PBS yung pinakita ko kaninang slide. So, understand? Okay, next. Diba, an appraisal to reconcile means analyze, compare, and weigh the different value indication. So ano yung mga nakalagay dyan? Diba? Reviewing the results from the sales cost and income approach, evaluating data quality and applicability, explaining why one approach carries more weight, and deriving a final value conclusion. Okay? So in a simple words, ano sabi niya? Reconciling is making the value make sense together by deciding which approach the most relevant, most reliable, and why one deserves more weight than the others. Kung nandiyan yung mga most, di ba? Most na yan. So kailangan lagi applicable yan. Let's now proceed to another slide. These are the example. This is one of the examples of the residential rental property. An appraisal value is small residential apartment and gets this result, yung 10.2, 11, and 10 million. So how you come up on this? So, syempre, ang mangyayari dyan, mamaya malalaman nyo kung paano ginagawa yung subject property sa comparables. Di ba kapag superior, magbabawas. Kapag naman inferior, magdadagdag in relation to the subject property. So, yung comparison, di ba, comparison, sometimes kasi yung nangyayari is the appraiser, tawag dito, wini-weigh lang niya Kumbaga parang nagkakaroon siya ng assumption sa kung paano niya lalagyan para lang makuha yung maitama yung subject property doon sa mga comparables. So yun lang. Like here, 'di ba 10.2, 11, and 10. So medyo may pagka-superior yung isa ka, though wala ka naman talagang nakikitang subject property. But if you are going to reconcile this kind of scenario, between 10 million to 50,000 to 10 to 100,000. So let's say magiging 10 million to 100,000. So parang dyan ka magka-come up because no, this reflects the professional judgment based on relevance and reliability and not simple averaging, consistent with weighting with a best supported approach. So yan po yung tatandaan natin. Okay, naintindihan na po. Let's now proceed to the sales comparison approach. So here, the sales comparison approach, we have the concept and then the basis. And based on the principle of substitution. Ano ba yung principle of substitution? A buyer will not pay more for a property than the cost of acquiring on equally desirable substitute. So it is widely used for residential houses, condominium units, vacant residential, and commercial. Sabi nila parang ito daw yung barat or pag sinabing substitution, isipin mo will not pay no more. Siguro ayaw niya talaga mag-aksaya ng pera sa isang bagay na hindi naman talaga di ba? Hindi naman makapaki-pakinabang. So the methodology here define the subject property, select comparable properties in an arm's length sales within the same market area, analyze differences like yung time, location, lot size, floor area, age, condition, make adjustment. So sabi ko nga kanina, adjust comparables. Kapag superior, medyo mataas, bawasan. Mag-assumption ka lang, magkaroon ka lang assumption. And then kapag naman inferior, dagdagan. So not the subject, hindi mo kailangan bawasan or i-adjust yung subject property. Ang ina-adjust lang po natin lagi ay ang comparable properties, yung mga comparables lang. So derive indicated value usually through a peso per square meter or yun yung pinaka-analysis, no? Doon ka lang siya magde-derive ng indicative value. Okay, yung strength and limitations, laging kasama rin siya kasi it reflects actual market behavior, prepared when plenty of comparable sale exists, yung mga demand and supply dyan. Then the limitations, difficult in thin or inactive market, baka hindi siya available, and asking price are not equivalent to sale price. So yan po yung mga dapat nating ilagay na strength and limitations, kinakailangan yan. Okay, so let's now proceed to example. Okay, may ginawa yata akong wait lang, example. So, as per the concept, di ba? Concept and basis natin, ano ang sinasabi? Applicable siya sa residential houses, condominium units, vacant residential, and then the commercial. Okay, so ang methodology natin dito is yung sample natin na subject property, ang type niya is residential houses and lot. Location siya sa Barangay A ng Quezon City. Ang lot area 150 and floor area 120. Before nung naalala ko, kala ko yung halimbawa yung property may up and down. So ang total plot area niya is 120. Ang pagkakaalam ko 120 lang sa baba, 120 sa taas. Yung pala total na siya ng floor area. Kaya nga floor area. So yung floor sa ground floor at floor sa first floor. So pagkasabahin mo siya. So kung 120 yan, 60-60 siya. Okay? So yun pala yun. Dati hindi ko pa ako nag-aaral, yun ang pagkakaalam ko. Hindi, 120, ang laki lang naman. Tapos nataas, 120 pa rin. Bongga. Di ba? Ang saya-saya. Okay? So, the improvements here to historic concrete house and the legal attributes fee simple ownership. Okay? Alam mo yun naman yan. Yung kung siya ba ay clean title, yung fee simple ownership, yan yung mga TCT, transfer certificate of title, yung mga ganun, TCT, yan. So mga condominium title. So here, we have our step 1. How you will do this step 1? Select the comparable properties within the neighboring or subdivisions that I had identified within the neighboring area, no? So, The three recent arm length sales, so ang comparables natin dito, may lot area siya. Yung comparable 1, 140 square meter, ang price niya 7 million. Then comparable to 160 square meter, which is 8 million. And then the comparable 3 is 150 million with 7.5. So tandaan mo ha, ito yung comparable mo and then yung subject property. So, kailangan mo siyang, parang i-balance mo lang siya to the nearest. Talagang magkakaroon ka ng assumption. So, here, yung, di ba, ang sinasabi nila dapat is arm's length sales. Kapag sinabing arm's length sales is a property transaction where the buyer and seller are independent. There's no relation parties and neither has an influence or control over the other. So parang, di ba, pag sinabi lang ni, naku, ayoko na ulit mabanggit. Kasi sinabi ni Mayor ganito, sinabi ni ganyan, ganito. So walang ganun. So because that's such that the agreed price reflects true market condition kapag meron tayong ginamitan na arm's length sale. Kasi nga, it reflects the true market condition, hindi yung sa sinabi lang ni controlling power. Sino ba yung mga controlling power sa atin? Di ba yung mga nasa government? Yun. So, yun. So, that means kapag siya it reflects to a market condition rather than a special relationship or pressure. Kasi nga, di ba, nagpakahirap ako mag-take ng board exam, tapos nagpasa ako ng appraiser exam, tapos pinipressure lang ako ni mayor or ni governor. Okay? So, in an unlent, so the parties do not have a special relationship like yung mga parents, subsidiary companies, family members, landlord, tenants. So, yan yun. That could be distort the price. Okay? Both parties should be acknowledgeably and prudently, meaning that they understand the property and then the market. So what is the step number 2 here? Analyze differences. Differences were noted in lot size, condition, date of sale, and location within the subdivision. Okay? So dyan ka lang magmamatter sa mga differences. So let's now have a step number 3. Ano na yung dapat mong gawin? So, meron kang subject property, meron ka ng comparable, and then may mga analysis, you analyze na yung differences. Now, let us assume, mag-assume lang tayo kasi depende nga yan sa judgment ng mga appraisers. So, yung comparable one, ang kanyang lot area is 140, which is inferior, mababa, doon sa ating subject property. The subject property is 150 square meter. Tapos yung comparable to naman is medyo malaki ng 10 square meter, which is 160. Yung subject natin is 150. So, ano dapat gawin? So since superior, mag-a-adjust tayo, ma-minus natin siya ng at least mga 400 or ganyan. Medyo closely related to the ano. And then yung comparable to is the most similar kasi pareha sila ng lot area, 150, 150, which is the most desirable, diba? So there's no adjustment at all. So ang mangyayari niyan, yung adjusted price niya naging 7.3, tapos yung kanyang number 2 comparable 7.6, 7.5 yung isa. So let's now proceed to step number 4. Ano naman yung dapat mong gawin? So derive the indicated value o convert mo na siya, di ba? Yung peso per square meter of plot area and reconcile. So indicative value na yan is between the 7.3 to 7.6, and the most comparable sila is the comparable 3. So sino ang nanalo at this juncture? Yay! So yung comparable 3. So yun yung tamang sagot. And then let's have now our professional judgment o pagdating sa reconciliation. Di ba kasama yan lagi? So the final value was not average. Hindi ka average. Nagbase ka sa iyong professional judgment. And then the greater weight was given to comparable 3 because it required the least adjustment and most closely reflected the subject's location, size, and the condition. Okay? So, meron ba tong strength and limitation? Siyempre, meron yan. So, it reflects actual market behavior kasi within the lang naman yan, di ba? The area, nagkanda ka talaga ng market comparison, market data. So, most reliable when there is a sufficient recent comparable. Meron ka nga, oh, ayan, oh, 1, 2, comparable 1, 2, 3. So, yan yun. Ano naman yung limitation? Less reliable in thin or inactive markets. Hindi naman siya inactive market. Then, asking price are not equitable to a sale prices. So, usually, when the PRC or the examiner, laki niyang, ano, sabi niya, it is a using sales comparable approach based on the principle of substitution. The value of the subject property was determined by adjusting comparable sales to, to the most reliable indicator rather than averaging the result. Okay? So let's now proceed to, naintindihan na po ang ating concept and basis pagdating dito sa sa sales comparison. So ano siya, yan yung example na mas madaling intindihin. Okay? Minsan yung comparable, 10. Minsan naman, i-average mo yung iba. So, depende sa mga given question or case scenario. Let's now proceed to the cost approach or the summation approach. So, the concept of this approach and then the basis is usually based on the idea of a buyer will not pay more for a property than cost to acquire land and construct improvements of equal utility. So we usually apply just sa new buildings, special purpose properties, schools, churches, government buildings, yung mga institution, kung complex, yung mga ganyan, yung mga gym na mga pang-government. So yan, kasama siya dyan. Even also the insurance and then and replacement cost studies. So the basic formula, very basic lang, value equals land plus cost minus depreciation. So yan lang yung pinakang napakabilis na na basic formula. And then the methodology, makikita nyo naman is estimate land value, tapos estimate cost improvement, estimate depreciation. Ano ba yung mga depreciation? Physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, and then external obsolescence. So please take note that the depreciation applies only to the improvement. Okay? Sa improvement at hindi sa land. Hindi sa land, okay? Hindi siya doon applicable. And most reliable for a new or relatively new structures becomes less reliable as property ages. So tandaan po natin pag cost approach, very easy ang formula, and then lagi mo lang iisipin itong methodology. Next, the example ng cost approach, summation approach is like here. Diba yung concept and basis natin is a buyer wants to buy a newly built bungalow house. So the land value from the sales comparison is 2 million. And then the cost to build the house today is 3.5 million. And then since bagong alang siya, new young siya, so there's no depreciation, automatic zero, di ba? So here, in the computation as the basic formula, we have the value equals land value plus cost minus depreciation. So ilan ba yung land value na nakalagay? Is 2 million, okay? So i-plus mo lang siya. 3.5, wala naman ang cost ng kanyang ano. And then, walang depreciation kaya zero. So ang sagot natin dito is what? Is 5.5 million ang tamang sagot. Okay? So, sabi nga, in a simple explanation, the buyer will not pay more than what it would cost to buy the land and build the same house from the scratch, which is the basic idea of the cost summation approach. So, dyan siya nagmamatter. Okay? So, alam niyo na po yung katulad ng example na yan, yung cost approach. And then here, sa ating Philippine Valuation Standards, the cost approach definition, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo during the exam. This is what you remember during the exam. Yung mga ganyang definition. Given yan eh. Pero yung how do you think and analyze or yung meron kayong critical thinking, that's the case scenario na kailangan yung gawin during sa mga case-to-case na binibigay ng examiner. Yung cost approaches method, we have replacement cost method, reproduction cost method, summation method. So yan yung mga definitions. We have also our direct cost, indirect cost, cost approach procedures, and that's the formula. The RCN minus depreciation plus the land value. Okay? So, kailangan alam niyo po yan kasi nga may mga senaryo na dyan magbabase. Okay? And in the cost approach, it provides an indication of a value using the economic principle. Ito yung sinasabi nilang principle of substitution. And yon yung pinaka-importante, land and building are theoretically valued separately. Magkahiwalay siya pag siya ay ano, no? Na-compute or ina-appraise. And ayun, so here is our um, how to determine, kasi 'di ba meron tayong tinatawag na reproduction cost at saka yung replacement cost. So kapag sinabi natin na kapag may nakita kayo sa board exam na duplicate or replica, automatic reproduction cost na yan. And then kapag may nakita naman kayong replacement cost, producing and constructing, kumbaga parang yun lang yung pinakang keyword nyo for you to know the definition of the replacement cost and then the reproduction cost. Kasi lumalabas minsan, pero may mga hint word ka doon, pero be careful, baka mamaya may twist or may trap dun sa question. Okay? Let's now proceed to the four to determine the reproduction cost. Paano ba natin na-determine ang reproduction cost? So, we have four. Number one is index method, a square foot, square meter method. We have unit in place method. We have the quantity survey method. So, pag-usapan natin muna itong sinasabi nila na index method. Kapag may nakita kayo na cost service index method, it is also known as the index method or cost service. It is a cost approach technique used to estimate the reproduction cost of a building by adjusting its original construction cost to the date of valuation using a price index. So, by CPI. Diba? So, yung pag-ano pala ng index, laging may, yan yung nagiging basis, diba, yung CPI. So, for you to know na, this method is based on the principle that a construction cost over the time due to the inflation and the market condition. So, by comparing the price index at the time that the building was constructed with the index at the valuation date, an appropriate multiplier is obtained. Kasi magko-compute ka dyan eh. And then this multiplier is then applied to the original cost to estimate the current reproduction cost of the building. Ano ang sabi sa PBS 105 under this cost approach? The current cost may be estimated by adjusting the historical construction cost using the recognized cost. So the index method, also known as the cost, applies this principle by updating the original cost to current cost level through the appropriate price indexes. Here is the example. Given the data with the objective is to estimate the reproduction cost as of, for example, 2025 using the index method. So the given here are the given data here are the commercial office building was constructed noong 2015 pa. In 10 years, the original construction cost is 20 million. So I mean the original siya noong 2015. Tapos nung valuation date, magkano na siya inabot? 'Di ba? So the valuation date is in 2025. So magkano na siya aabutin or magkano na yung price nitong 2025. And then the available consumer price index data. So let us assume mag-assume tayo na ang CPI niya ng 2015, for example, you have to make the step 1. So, yung step 1 natin, identify the relevant cost indexes. So, yung CPI niya ng construction 2015 is 120 lang, and then nung valuation become 180 noong 2025. So, let us assume that the CPI properly reflects changes in the construction cost. So, no depreciation. And then no depreciation is considered for this example. It is focused only the reproduction cost. So the index method uses a cost index as a multiplier. So all you have to do is you have to make a adjustment. So magkakaroon na kasi kukunin mo yung reproduction cost ng ngayong 2025, di ba? So, yan nga, yung given value, 120, the 2015, the 2025 is 180 na siya. So, ang ginawa mo, i-compute mo yung the index multiplier equals the CPI at valuation date over or divide by construction date. So, kumbaga, index multiplier, CPI valuation date, nung ano na yon, nung time na yon, and then, yung construction date sa ngayon. So, ang amin, yung construction date ng 2015 at saka yung valuation date ng 2025. So, ang nasa itaas, yung current, and then yung nasa baba is yung construction date na kung kailan siya ginawa. So, if you are going to make an interpretation on this, magkakaroon ka ng 50% increase since noong 2015 to 2025. Kasi nga, nung divide mo sila 180 over 120 is 1.5. So 50% increase. So applying the index method, index multiplier to the original cost, the reproduction cost equals the original cost multiplied by index multiplier, which is the 20 by 1.5. So the reproduction cost now is the how much? So 30 million. That is the correct answer, no? Yung 30 million na yan. Kasi it is the estimated reproduction cost as of 2025. Okay, so kung makikita yung in question, di ba, the valuation date, tapos yung kung kailan siya na-construct. So ngayon 2025 na, ilan na siya? So yung 30 million na, ganun katindi. Ang laki ng tinubo kasi 50% yung in-increase niya from 10 years, in the span of 10 years. Okay? Naintindihan po natin index method? Okay. So maraming salamat. Then let's now proceed to the second one, which is the square foot or the square meter method. So in this case, they also call this as the comparative unit method. So in the square foot method, it is a cost estimation technique under the cost approach where the replacement or the reproduction cost of a building is estimated by multiplying a unit construction. So this method assumes that the recently construction comparable buildings provide a reliable basis for estimating the cost of constructing a similar building with approximately the same utility. Okay? Parehas lang nung ginamit na kung ano man yung so the same lang siya. And then as per the PBF, di ba, tsaka yung other BLGF, they recognize this kind of method. And why this method is also called as the comparative unit method. It is called comparative method because the unit cost square meter square foot is derived from the recently built comparable structures, published construction cost guides, and this unit cost are applied to the subject property assuming the comparable quality, design, and utility. Kumbaga parang lahat ng kinukunin mo sa within the neighboring market area, so same lang siya kaya nga comparable eh. Hindi naman pa pwede na mansion tapos yung nipa hut. So, walang ganun, di ba? Assuming comparable quality, design, and, and the utility. So, ang hirap namang sabayan ng ganun, no? Kapag yung mansion tapos nipahat lang comparable. So, when this method is appropriate in our Philippine context, this method is the most appropriate as a is the most appropriate when the building is a new or relatively new. The structure is standard in design, reliable, local construction cost data is available, and of course, these are all very pertains in the appraisal for taxation, for the mortgage, lending, insurance, and general valuation. If you are going to look to our example case scenario, the square foot method and the square meter. Here, the given subject property. Property type, residential house. Then the location province, provincial city. The floor area is 150. The construction type, concrete residential using. And then the condition is newly built. Now, what is the step one? Determine the unit cost, the construction cost from the, for example, here, build comparable residential recognized to cost manual, the appraiser determines that 35,000 per square meter is the prevailing cost for similar construction. And then, the step number 2, compute the replacement cost new or the RCN. So what is the formula? The replacement cost new equals the floor area multiplied by the cost per square meter, which the result is 5,250,000. So 5,250,000 is the total computation of the replacement cost nyo. So, yan yung po yung magiging output. So, syempre, kailangan mo siyang i-deduct kung ano ba yung mga depreciation. Kung halimbawa, 300,000 depreciation, i-minus mo dun sa 5,250. Since the cost, this building is new and there's no depreciation is deducted, so zero siya. So, wala siyang i-minus. So, consistent with cost approach principle, this is under the PBS or the Philippine Valuation Standards. So, the resulting building value will be, yan, 5,250. Okay? Note, this value represent improvements only. Okay? It represent the improvements only, and the land value must be estimated separately and added to arrive the total property value as per defined in the PBS and then the BLGF. Okay? So it can be also, there is a strength and there's also the limitation in this scenario. Maybe it could be widely accepted in the Philippine appraisal, so it's very suitable for the mass appraisals and taxation. So yan po yan. Okay, let's now proceed to our next slide. The example nung sinatawag natin na square foot or square meter method. For the floor area of the house, like for example, 100 square meters, cost to build similar houses is 20 per square meter from the recent construction. So what would be the answer? Excuse. So what is the estimated building value? Di ba ang sabi dito, 20,000 per square meter, then i-multiply mo sa floor area. So what would be the answer is 2 million. So area times cost per unit equals the building cost. Yan yung dapat yung tandaan. Okay? The building value is found by multiplying the area of the house by the cost per square meter. So tandaan nyo lang yan na yung area times cost per unit equals building cost. Let's now proceed to our third reproduction cost na method, which is the how to determine the unit in place method. The unit in place method is a cost estimation technique under the cost approach wherein the appraiser estimates the construction cost of the building by valuing its major components separately, like yung foundation, wall, roof, flooring, etc. Kung ano man yun. Then, summing all the component costs to arrive at the total cost of a new structure. So each component cost already includes yung materials, labor, overhead, builder's profit. So malalaman nyo kung ano ba yung builder's profit na yan. Bakit siya kasama? Okay? So, our basis here yung Philippine Valuation Standard pa rin at saka yung BLGF. And, sabi niya here is yung the Philippine standard Philippine appraisal materials identify the unit in place as a more detailed and accurate than the square meter method. Okay, so it is more time consuming because it values each component of the structure separately before the summation. So the key characteristics of this is di ba yung unit in place method niya, yung level of detail is very high, talagang very demanding. The accuracy is more accurate, more time consuming. The basis is, for example, yung the cost per component in place, kung square meter method. And then here is one of the example, like the subject property, as you can see from the screen, a small single-story residential house, simple concrete construction, new building, no depreciation. And here, let us assume only 3 components with the foundation walls and the roofing. So, here, in step number 2, determine the unit in place cost per component from the recent construction data. Ano ang nakalagay na data here? Yung foundation, yung unit in place niya, 200,000, wall, 300,000, then the roofing is 100,000. So if you are going to calculate this three, so you will come up into 600,000 as the component cost. So, kailangan mo idagdag yung component cost na yan. So, yan yun. And then, you will be having a 600,000. So, the final answer for the building cost nyo will be the 600,000. And the unit in place method estimates building cost by adding the cost of its major construction component already installed in place. Kaya siguro siya unit in place method. Okay? Bakit daw may nagtanong 'di ba, bakit why it is more accurate than the square meter method? So it recognizes different costs for a different components. It also reflects the actual construction composition, and it avoids the averaging the entire building into a single rate. So kaya yun ang difference niya, di ba? And then here in our slide 30, we have our last method, yung tinatawag natin quantity survey. Kung malalaman ninyo, yon yung mga bill of quantity, even yung kaliit-liit na pako o tornilyo, so you need to put that. Di ba? Kailangan kasi nga, quantity survey method is very detailed, very accurate. So kung tatandaan ninyo, kailangan, di ba yung mga BOQ, kung yung mga engineer dito, alam nila yan. So quantitative survey method is a cost estimation technique under the cost approach where the appraiser estimate the reproduction cost of a building by itemizing, or they need to break down and costing every material and every labor operation needed to construct the structure, and then adding indirect cost and entrepreneurial profit. So ano naman yung entrepreneurial na profit na yan? Malalaman natin later, di ba? So like I said, there is also the PBS and the BLGF. And then the quantity survey method is as the most accurate, most detailed, and the most time-consuming because every item of construction is measured, priced, and summed. So, di ba sabi ko kahit yung tornilyo, kaliit-liit ang mga nut, yung sa di ba? So, binibilang yan as in. So, kailangan malaman ninyo na kailangan niya. Wait, mag-charge lang ako. Okay, so now here, we have the examples up here. So by the way, ang key characteristic nga pala ng quantity surveying method is yung accuracy niya is the highest among the other methods. Then the detail is very detailed, kaya nga diba most detailed, most accurate, lahat ng most. And then time required, very time consuming, cost basis is every material and labor must be included, must be kailangan nakalagay, nakasulat. And then includes the indirect, yes, of course, entrepreneurial profit, nandyan din. And also, best use for the special and high value buildings. So yung mga pagmatindihan na to, mga first class. Ganyan yun. Diba? Sana lahat talaga na report, no? Kasi maraming mga building ngayon na yan, yung mga construction, mga flood control project na yan, ang daming mga hidden agenda. Okay, let's now proceed on how many construction do you know? Diba usually, ang alam po natin talaga is direct cost. So yung mga direct cost and indirect cost. So for example, this one, diba? Yung direct cost, which is the hard or the physical construction cost. Direct cost is the expense directly attributable to physical constructing the building. Yan yung mga example niya, site preparation, materials, etc. And then the indirect cost naman, like for example, building permit, land survey, insurance. So it is incurred to complete the construction but not that become part of the physical structure. Diba? Alam nga naman yung permit, isama mo dun sa sa diba? So iba yun. So yan yung indirect cost. And then sabi niya, ano naman daw yung tinatawag na entrepreneurial profit. So kapag tinawag natin entrepreneurial profit, it's part and parcel of the indirect, or it is also classified as indirect cost. Bakit? Kasi nga, This also called as developer's profit. So ano yung entrepreneurial profit? This is also called as developer's profit, wherein the compensation for it is a risk taken by the developer, the coordination and the management of the construction. So in a simple way, um, tawag dito, yung why entrepreneurial profit is included in the quantity survey method as part of the indirect cost. 'Di ba ang sabi niya dito is entrepreneurial profit is included in the quantity survey method because the method aims to estimate the total cost to reproduce a property as a completed and market ready, which is necessary, includes compensations for the developer's risk and coordination and management effort. So, yan yung pinakang parang ano natin talaga, bakit siya ini-include. It is also part, I mean, mentioned in the Philippine Valuation Standards under the cost approach that the PVS requires estimating just estimating the reproduction of replacement cost nyo, which represent the amount typical market participants would have to pay to create the improvement at the valuation date. So yan yun. Sa may mga building mga overhead, yung mga builders, developers return, entrepreneurial profit. And then here, the entrepreneurial, if you're going to pagdating kasi sa pag-estimate diyan, 'di ba? Yung sa quantity survey method. So, meron tayong tinatawag na yung mga listing. So kung yung mga listing na yan, if you are going to list only like the cement or the steel labor, is the steel, the labor, or the permits, and yung mga yan, yung mga direct costs, and then the indirect costs, that means you are answering how much does cost the build, to build. Kumbaga parang magkano ang magiging cost sa paggawa ng building. Diyan lang 'yon, naglista ka lang, nag-breakdown ka lang. So ibig sabihin nilagay mo na lahat ng mga klase ng iba't ibang components. So that means you are answering how much does it cost to build. But the appraisal asks how much would a typical market participants need to spend to reproduce this structure. 'Di ba? So yan yung pinakang question diyan eh, bakit natin sinasama yung entrepreneurial na profit? So bakit natin kasama as part ng ano ng indirect cost? Kasi nga 'di ba, tama nga naman. Pag nilista mo lang lahat yung mga nasa BOQ na yan, yun hanggang dun lang yun, direct indirect. How about the ano? How much would a typical market participant need to spend to produce the structure? Siyempre, di ba, may mga risk, may mga tao dyan, so you have to consider na mga dapat ay sinasali natin sa quantitative survey method. And yeah, so I believe na naintindihan po natin. Okay? Now we have what we call this, an example. I think I had an example here. So, yun nga, kapag daw direct and indirect costs, collective called construction costs, and they are essential to the quantity survey method because the method seeks to estimate the total reproduction cost of a structure by itemizing physical construction expenses and entrepreneurial profit required to complete the building. Okay, so yan yung pinakang ano niya. Meaning yung bakit kailangan yung entrepreneurial profit. Okay, let's hear our sample. For example, item as the material cost. Subject property here, we have what we called a small single-story residential house. New construction reproduction cost is required. So direct cost, step number 1 is item as the material. So ano yan? So yung cement, steel bar, roofing, so 250,000. Then we have item as the labor cost, which cost is 180,000. So i-compute mo yung direct cost. So that would be 430. So would that be enough? No, because mayroon pa tayong tinatawag na indirect cost. Idagdag mo yan. Magkano ang indirect cost? 50,000. Ano yung 50,000 na yan? It involves the building permit, insurance, taxes, overhead expenses. Okay? So, magkano? 50,000. And then, i-add mo rin yung entrepreneurial profit. which is assumes like for example 10%, kung 10% ang nakalagay, kung 15 is 15%. So how much is the total of the entrepreneurial profit? That would be 48,000. Okay, because 430 plus 80 times 2 sa 10, so 48 siya. Tama ba? So basta yun. May pagka-typo. Next, then we have here, compute the total reproduction cost nyo. Nakuha mo na yung direct, nakuha mo na yung mga cost, mga labor cost, indirect cost, entrepreneurial profit. Now, total the reproduction cost nyo, which is 528,000. So, diyan siya magpo-fall. Tama ba itong mga? I think, wait, there is something wrong yata sa compute. Wait. 48, 430, 1, 2, 3 plus 50, 1, 2, 3 equals times mo sa 10%. So mag-48,000 na. Okay, so yan yung tamang sagot. So the total estimated reproduction cost is 528,000. So this time, the quantity survey method estimate the reproduction cost by itemizing and totaling all materials, labor, indirect cost, entrepreneurial profit required to construct the building. Ganyan po tayo mag-compute ng quantity survey method. That's why the detailed, most accurate na tinatawag. Okay? So, hopefully. So, dito naman sa mass appraisal definition, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo lagi. This is what I remember kasi nga andyan siya definition. Kaya alam mo na yan. We will be having a computation for sa bawat isa nito and then discuss na during the math computation, diba? So, baka 2 weeks from now. And then, kailangan alam nyo na yung definition nito kasi lumalabas siya sa board exam. Yung economic life, age life method, actual age, remaining economics. So, yan. And kailangan yung ma-memorize or hindi nyo actually ma-memorize, ma-instill nyo lang sa mind nyo. Pag nakita nyo na yung actual age known as historical or chronological, actual age na agad ang sagot doon. So this is what you have to remember during the board exam. Okay, next, here, we are going to discuss about the income capitalization approach. Ang haba ng cost, no? So the income capitalization approach is the value of an income producing property is the present worth of the future income that it can generate. So in short, the people buy income properties because of the income they expect to receive, and that's the income capitalization approach. So bakit ako magpa-purchase? Kailangan may pakinabang, kailangan may kita. Okay, so yun. And here is the concept and the basis. So based on the principle of anticipation, value is the present worth of future benefits, which is the income. And then the methodology, the value for the direct capitalization is the NOI or the net operating income. And over the cap rate, pagdating mo sa yield capitalization naman is it employs discounted cash flow or the use when income varies over time. So ano ang formula natin dyan? It's very easy. Value equals NOI over cap rate. Okay? So you have to remember the capitalization rate reflects risk. Kasi may question dyan eh. Saan daw yung na nag-reflect yung risk? So sa capitalization. So makikita mo kung anong klaseng approach yun. So capitalization rate reflects risk. Now we have here I think we have the sample scenario of this income capitalization approach. So number one here, you ask to value a small apartment building in the Metro Manila. And then the step one is determine the gross number of units so later on malalaman nyo yung mga PGI, EGI, yung mga computation yan. So here, meron naman tayong sample. So here, determine the gross income. So 10 unit yan, so ang bawat buwan ay nagkakahalaga ng 5,000 pesos na paupahan. Then, magkano yung monthly gross income? 10 times 5,000 equals 50,000. Very easy. So, i-convert mo lang to annual gross. Pag sinabing annual, 12. Pag sinabing quarter, it's either, tawag dito, yung kung binanggit na fourth quarter or third quarter. So alam niyo na yun. Basta nagma-matter doon sa question kung ilan yung quarter. Kung, kasi 'di ba pag first, kung apat na quarter yan by 3. So by annual, kung halimbawa H2 ang sinabi or H1, so pag H2 from from July to December na yan, so 6 months. So doon lang yan. And then convert mo siya to annual gross. So 50,000 times mo sa 12 equals 600,000 per year. Then deduct the operating expenses. So paano mo siya i-deduct yung operating expenses? 'Di ba? Isusulat mo lahat doon yung mga nagastos. So, yung 600,000 na yan, i-minus mo expenses which is the 150,000. So the total is 450,000 na lang yung net operating income mo. So take note that NOI is an income before loan payments and income tax. Ano nga? Yung net operating income daw is income before loan payments and income tax. Okay? So, ang number 4, ang sinasabi is determine the cap rate. So from the market data of similar apartment and building in the area, capitalization rate is 10%. Nabanggit naman siya dyan. So, ang mangyayari niyan is, pumunta ka doon sa step number 5, the value equals NOI over cap rate, which is how many or how much? 450,000 divide 10 dahil yung cap rate niya. So it will go to the final answer of 4.5 million. So yan yung pinakang sagot ninyo. Okay? So using this kind of income capitalization approach, the value of an apartment building is found by dividing its net operating income by the capitalization rate based on the principle that the value is the present worth of a future income. So, dun lang siya magmamatter. Okay? Why this matches in the principle of anticipation? Bakit siya nagmamatch sa principle of anticipation? Very obvious. The buyer is anticipating the future rental income. Kikita. Okay? The value today reflects the expected income for tomorrow. So, ganyan yung mga question na pwedeng sabihin pagdating sa income capitalization. And also, the property's worth is tied to its earning power. Diba? Yan yung earning power kasi nga income. And then, that is exactly why this approach is used for income-producing properties in our country, dyan sa Pilipinas. Okay, let's now proceed to the appraisal process or the procedure.